welcome to Tuesday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where today I suspect we might be in for a very long video. I say that, I was trying to think about this morning. I got sent this puzzle, by the way, last night, so I saw it last night and I read the rules last night. They've been percolating in my brain ever since, and I obviously know the name of the constructor. For that is Glipperal, and I was trying to think this morning about whether there are any constructors out there that fill me with fear more than Glipperal. I don't think there are. I mean, I'm very scared of Phistomefel. I'm very scared of Totally Normal Cat. I'm very scared of some Maseta math puzzles I've done in the past have been very difficult. And when you're dealing with people like Tall Cat and Fry the Guy, you're always thinking, well, these people are so clever, it could be an absolute nightmare. But Glipperal is, it is always, A, interesting, and B, bafflingly brilliant in terms of his constructions. So, yeah, this is today's puzzle. This, by the way, I think this was released over a month ago. And it's been with our testers ever since. So the fact I got an email about it yesterday means I think it's taken them a month to solve it, which might mean that this is, going to be a very, very long stint. It's called Balance Loop Sudoku. It has a fascinating rule set. I'll read the rules in just a second. I've only got one bit of information today. Some of you have been asking why we haven't streamed recently. Well, the reason is we've been trying to work out what we should stream. We really enjoyed the Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes game that we played just before Christmas. But I think if you watch that last stream, you will know we about reached the limit of our powers on that without learning the manual, which I don't think either of us is very inclined to do. So we've been thinking about what to do next, and we had a great recommendation from Alex Carpenter for this game, which is basically some sort of computer game around escape rooms. Now, I've never done an escape room in real life. I've always wanted to do one. Mark's done a couple, I think, and says they're great, and they're exactly the sort of, the thing that we should be doing on the channel if we can, and now we apparently can. This game is exactly what we're after, and we might even be able to play it together, as different characters in the same room. So I hope you approve of this. We'll be back to you very soon with the day we're going to do this. Where are we? Tuesday. We'll try and do it this week, I think. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to trying that anyway in the coming days. Other than that, just look out. We've got loads of stuff on Patreon at the moment. We've got my solve of Fillomino Aquarium by Phistomefel, one of the best puzzles I've ever done. Mark's latest cryptic crossword solve. And we've got the quite approachable Sudoku hunt for you at the start of February, which is going to be something a little bit easier than the Star Wars hunt that we did, and also the Pyramid hunt, of course, that we had as a bonus just before Christmas. So if you can support the channel there, it should be worth your while in terms of puzzle delivery in the coming days. Now, let's get on with Balance Loop Sudoku, and I'll read you the rules. They are as follows. Normal Sudoku rules apply. Oh, in fact, I just remembered, apparently there is an example puzzle here, which I have not dug out, so I need to pause and just find that 1 second. Okay, I found the example puzzle on Logic Masters Germany. I also noted that this puzzle has only been solved 9 times in the last 5 weeks. So that is terrifying. Anyway, here are the rules. Normal Sudoku rules apply. Draw a single closed loop that travels orthogonally through the centres of some cells. The loop does not use any cell more than once and must travel through each dot. The 2 loop segments extending from both sides of a dot must be balanced, i.e. the sum of the digits up to and including the digit in the cell containing the first turn must be the same. All possible dots are given. So, let us just try and work out what on earth this means by reference to this example puzzle. So I'm looking at the bottom row here. I can see that we've got this loop line sort of taking in all 4 of these squares from this. Oh, hang on, is that going to work? Look, yeah, from there to there, you can see there's a loop line going across. And there's a dot here. So that's saying, let me just read this again. the two loop segments extending from both sides of a line, from both sides of a dot, must be balanced. So that, I see. So that's saying this 6 here, which is on one side of the dot, is the sum of the digits you can find on the other side of the dot up to the turn. So 2 plus 3 plus 1 is 6, and then it turns. Let's find another dot. This dot, there's a dot here, you can't see it very well, but it's underneath this 2. There's a dot. So that's, yes, okay, so there's a 5. So if we go vertically from this dot going up this way, you can see there's a 5 here. Now if we go downwards until we get a turn, we get a 4 plus a 1. 4 plus 1 is 5. So the loop, again, is balanced on both sides of the dots. So we have to make sure that everything on either side of a dot is balanced. Now there's this other bit at the end, all possible dots are given. I mean, that's horrific. That is horrific that we're going to have to keep track of that. I don't even really understand what that means. I'm just trying to look in the example puzzle for a way of explaining this. I'm not sure how. Maybe actually the way to explain it is to think about this. So what that's saying is, imagine that the loop did this. And there's no circle at this junction. And imagine that this was a 1, 3 and this was a 1, 3. I think it's saying that's impossible in this puzzle, because in this situation you could have put a dot here, and then the sum in this direction would be 1, 3 until the first turn, and the sum in this direction would be 1, 3 until the first turn. So there would have been a balancing of the loop, and there should have been a circle here. I think maybe that's what it means. Wow. I mean, well, this is it's a ridiculous idea, Glipperall. It's ridiculous to think you can do this without putting in any digits. Literally, just the fact that we have to structure a loop, a balanced loop around these dots, leads to a unique solution. I mean, this is next generation Sudoku. It really is. I am absolutely fascinated. I can see how to start it, by the way, as well. Oh, by the way, we're definitely going to have to be using our loop drawing techniques today. Very long introduction, apologies. But anyway, the way to get your ability to draw loops is to click the cog icon to the right of the grid, and Sven, who is the programmer who works, of course, with us on Cracking the Cryptic, has built this thing called the pen tool. Just turn that on, and you will see a new option on the right hand side with your controls, which allows you to make these drawings. It's very intuitive. You can do things like this just by clicking on the cell. You can draw along borders, you can X borders. It's fabulous. Do support Sven if you get the chance. You can get hold of our software by buying something called Sudoku Pad, which is available on all sorts of mediums. You can get it on the Apple Store, the Android Store, and on Steam for Windows. And it is fabulous. So fantastic, Sven, as usual. Right, anyway, do have a go at the puzzle. The way to play is to click the link under the video. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. Now, yeah, I was saying I could start this. I think I can start it, because this dot in the corner, in fact that dot in the corner as well, but this cell must be visited by the loop, mustn't it? So we must do that. And then this is telling us that the loop goes through that point, so it must do that. So we can actually build a little bit out straight away, I think. Those two cells must be linked by loop. That one's less useful, because presumably the loop can do that, or that, or that. So we don't know about this one yet. That one we do. That must got to have a loop through it. The corner there must have a loop through it. That's got to have a loop through it. Ah, we're positively rocking along. We've nearly finished. We haven't really, have we? Well, I suppose what we can say is we can't close the loop. We've got to draw a single loop, not multiple loops. So that's got to extend. Now, so what's this dot in the corner telling us? That's telling us that this cell and these cells, oh yeah, okay, it depends, I suppose, where this loop turns. If this loop turns now, then it would be saying that that cell is equal to the sum of those two cells. But I guess it could go further down. It couldn't go all the way down there, though, because that would be summing 4 digits to give a single digit total. Yes, okay, well, okay, actually, this isn't where we should look then. We should look there. That can't turn. Yes, it's obvious. Oh, goodness me, that's really clever. Right, we can't do that. Because if you do that, what we're saying there is that this square and this square have to be equal. Because this is the only cell taken in until the first turn in northerly direction, and this is the only cell taken in by the loop in the southerly direction, so they would have to have the same digit in, and that's not going to work from a Sudoku perspective. So that means that that's not a possible loop segment, so the loop must go down there. Now we must close the loop here, so we get another loop segment here. And oh yes, this is lovely. Right, now we can think about this point before. If that cell, well, that cell here, let's colour it in, is the sum of however many cells I do down here until the loop turns. So if I go any more cells, if I take this cell on the loop, I've got to make 4 cells sum to a single digit. And that's impossible. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10. And you can't put 10 into that blue cell. So this must turn. And then it hits, oh well, and now we can't close the loop here, so that turns. Now, yes, and I'm getting this. Now if that turns, I've got exactly the same problem here. This digit and this digit would have to be the same because I'd have to balance the loop, but that would break the Sudoku, so that's got to go down. Now I'm just looking at this. Those 3 digits there sum to that digit. So that means this digit is at least a 6, because even if I make this a 1, 2, 3 triple, 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6. So actually, I've even got a pencil mark in the grid for some digits. Now, what does that mean though? So that means, I'm just trying to look at the whole geometry of box 1 and try and understand it, because there's a relationship between this digit and these digits. There's also a simultaneous relationship between this digit and these 2 digits around this dot here. So I've got to balance around this dot and this dot. So doesn't that mean that, yeah, that does mean, so that means that those digits are also the same as those 3. So whatever these 2 sum to is the same as what those 3 sum to, which is a bit weird. So if that's a 6 and that's a 1, 2, 3 triple, I know that would work. Yeah, you could still do that. You just have to make sure the 3 was in this domino. And also, this digit is the same as those 2 digits. Now I've got no idea what to do now. That's got to turn in one direction or the other. Ah, okay, right. Let's start down here then. This little line segment here, you can see it's going to turn either that way or that way. In other words, this digit here needs to be the sum of whatever on the other side of this dot. So what would happen if this turned in either right or left? Well, then it's broken, because again you'd have this thing where this digit and this digit need to contain the same number to balance the loop. So this cannot stop and must extend vertically. And it could go further again. If this is 6, 7, 8 or 9, this could carry on. Right, but now I want to look at this dot, because this dot this can't be like if you do the logic puzzle Masu, which is a Japanese logic problem, where white cells on the perimeter of the grid, you can always do that through them. Well, you can't do that through this white dot, because look, now to balance the loop, this cell, this digit would have to be the same as this digit. So that's not a possibility here. So this must have a line segment coming out in that direction. And look, this is absolutely gorgeous. So now, whichever way this loop segment goes, if it goes that way or this way, one of these two cells is a single digit number and must balance with the loop still. So again, if this loop turns, we've got a problem, because that's saying that either of those two digits needs to be the same as this digit, which it can't be. So this is not a possible loop segment. This loop has to also extend upwards. So now, it would actually be lovely to know if this turned that way, because then I get quite a few more loop segments. The only way I'm really going to get numbers in this grid, though, is like this type of thing, isn't it? It's going to be forced where I've got to make big totals from long strings of digits. What I mean by that is, that's a poor way of expressing it, where I've got to make a long string of digits like this add up to a single digit number. That's how we're going to get digits in this grid. I don't really see how else we're going to get digits in this grid. I can draw another loop segment there. So can I work out what this does? That's probably a sensible idea. I can see on its left side, it's just taking in a single cell, this point here. So we can immediately rule out it doing something like that. That will be impossible, because then obviously to balance the loop, this and this would have to be the same. So that would also be impossible. Yes, okay, so one way of thinking about this is once you get the loop segment just going one cell and then turning, it must not just go one cell in the other direction. I guess unless this is on a sort of boundary where you could cross the box, but here you just can't. You've got to be really careful to make sure this either goes 2 down, is what I'm saying, or 3 down, or it goes 2 across, in order to not give us a problem with this cell being the same as either this digit or this digit. Can we rule one of those out? If it goes downwards, that would make this quite interesting. That would have to do that and then go down, and everything would seem to be quite constrained. I'm not sure that's possible, you know. I don't like that at all. Let me explain why. If this does turn down like this, then it definitely has to take this loop. We know that this cell is in the loop, so I have to do that, and I have to go down off it. No, I've made an error. That's very annoying. So all of my pontification up here has just come back to haunt me, because when I did this loop segment, and then extended this down. In my brain, I'd said, oh, I can't extend just one loop segment where I've got to balance with a single loop segment here, by which I mean, let's imagine this square is a 4. What I was thinking is, if I stop here, if the loop stops here and turns, this I knew would have to be the same as this, and in my brain I'd said that's impossible, that's not allowed. But here it is allowed, because these are not in the same box or the same column of the Sudoku or the same row. So I can do that. And what I was going to say, which is that this, well, I think it is impossible for that loop segment to go down there. You think in this column you've got far too many cells that have to add up to single-digit numbers. But this actually, if you do that instead, whoa, I think... Oh, does that give you a problem? No, that doesn't give you a problem there. So you can extend like that. Oh dear, I've really bobbins this up, haven't I? Sorry. So I'm going to remove all of this nonsense because I don't think I can disregard the possibility that that is a correct way that this loop continues. This is getting really, well, it's fascinating. It's difficult. I'm not denying that, but it is interesting. Okay. So, where on earth do we look now? Is it here? I don't like that so much as a thing to focus on. Let me explain why. Because there's not really... All we know here is that if we extend that into there, these 3 cells are the same as sum total of cells that this loop segment's going to extend to the right here. But I don't. That could stop there, or go one more, or go. I mean, actually, it could go all the way to the end of the grid. That's quite interesting, actually. Let me just note something there. If it does go all the way to the end of the grid, then these 3 digits would sum to the same as those 4 digits. So this would be an even total of digits. And these would have to add up to an odd number because of the secret. So the secret, of course, is something I only tell my very favourite people. But that is that in any complete and correct row, column, or box of a Sudoku, you'll find the digits 1 to 9 once each. If you add up the digits 1 to 9, you get 45, which is odd. So that was how I was drawing that conclusion. Anyway, it's totally irrelevant here. Okay, so oh dear, this one, is this dot somehow? Can we anti-mesu this one? Is that an impossible line segment? I just don't think it is, because although it does turn there, and therefore this digit needs to be the sum, so that would have to then extend that. We can make 3 digits. Oh. No. Okay, that's not possible. Just let me think about that for a bit long. I don't think it's possible. Because surely if I do that, what I'm thinking here is that from a balancing perspective, this digit has to sum to those 3 digits. So it's a bit like this 6 up here. This has to be a 6, 7, 8 or 9. These have to be 3. Yeah, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. Let me explain why. If we did try and create this loop segment, now those 3 cells and those 3 cells are all in the same column. So they add up to a minimum of 21, the triangular number for 6, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6. But that would mean that this cell and this cell have to sum up to at least 21, and that's impossible without one of them being a double-digit number. So this is not possible. And if this is not possible, let's go back So thinking about this, I think this loop segment is well, if this loop segment is forced, no, let me start again. Why haven't you got your elocution and your enunciation and elaboration brain in today? My articulation is it's gone. But what I'm thinking is, if we try and make this loop segment, it forces this to turn, and that means this digit suddenly becomes constrained. And the important thing about this digit being constrained, rather than in the other version I looked at before, is that this digit here is definitely in the same column as this digit, and that rules out the ability for this loop to turn there. So we couldn't do that and escape our fate. So we have to push that down, and that creates the problem. So all of this, what does it mean? In fact, let's back up so that I can be sure I don't go. I think this is an impossible loop segment, and that means that, whoopsie, it means that that is forced out of this circle, because we know this is in the loop and we know we can't go straight through the circle. Now, so now I can see that if this does turn up, this has to extend, and and then that would have to extend in that direction, and we get loads of loop drawn in. If that comes down, not sure. Sorry, I'm not sure about that. So, hang on. If this now turns down, we know it can't then turn, because then we've got a balanced loop, but we've got the same digit in this cell and this cell. So if this does turn down, it has to do that. Oh, and then we can shuffle out of problems again by doing this again. Ah! So, okay, this is hard. This is really difficult. It's glipperal, so there's no surprise there. Okay. So is this dot somehow important? If this dot is don't know. I mean, obviously we can't do that. That's never going to be a good thing. If either of these loop segments is taken, then we have to push. We're going to either have to create that loop segment or that loop segment, both of which would be really interesting. But at the moment, I don't see. Maybe I'm wrong about this. There might be some argument, but I don't see why that isn't a possible arrangement around this little dot thing. Ah, right, here is something. So, just thinking about this little dot thing here, I was wondering about it being penned in, like this. Now, I think it's penned in on its top side as well, by which I mean I don't think that is possible. Yeah, it's not. That's really, really beautiful. Okay. Why is this not a possible loop segment? Well, maybe it's better to think about it from this one's perspective. Is that a possible loop segment? And I think it's no. Because if you try and do this, what do you do from here? Because we now know that we have a fixed loop segment to the right of this dot, which means this digit now, this digit here, is either the same as that digit, because if this goes up now it must turn. So now we have to balance this cell and this cell. They'd have to be the same digit. That doesn't work. Or it's got to turn down, can't close the loop, and therefore it goes down again. And now you get exactly the same problem we had before, which is that these three digits sum to this digit. So this is a single digit number, and this is a single digit number, and we have to make 6 digits combined sum to 2 single digit numbers, which is impossible given the triangular number for 6 is 21 again. So this doesn't work. I'm sure there's an easier way of doing this, but I don't know what it is. So that means that... what does it mean? So it means that, yes, it means that this can't turn down, is the simple way of thinking about it. The way I was thinking about it was noting this can't go 2 up. And I think this is going to be interesting for this dot, because what does this dot now do? This is such a nice idea, it really is. So what we cannot do is anything like that. So the 2 line segments coming out of this circle cannot both be one loop. It cannot both be one segment, one cell long. Because if they are, obviously, if you do that, this cell and this cell must contain the same digit to balance the loop. So there must be a way of escaping one of the loop segments coming out of this circle here must go more than one cell. And the only way that's possible is if it, is if it goes horizontally. And it's actually going to join up here, where it probably has to end, doesn't it? Because now, whichever loop segment this then takes is going to be one of 3. Although now I'm wondering whether it can go horizontally, but that might just be me, my brain playing tricks. But whichever one it takes, to balance the loop around this dot, we're summing these 3 cells, minimum, to a single digit number which lives in one of these 3 cells. So we can't go any further here. Or we're summing 4 digits to one of those 3 cells, which won't work. So this now turns. And don't I have a problem with this dot now? So this is really weird, but if this loop segment now goes here like this, are we not saying that from this dot's perspective we are summing these 4 digits, because that's 4 cells we have to sum until we get to a turn. So we'd be summing these 4 digits, but on the other side of the dot we'd just be summing this digit, because then we have to turn, and that won't work. So that's nonsense, we can't do that. So actually we can get rid of this loop segment and put an X in there, which means that goes up. And this turns either down or it turns up. And one of these 2 digits is the sum of those 3 cells. But hang on, there's something wrong with this. I think I've made a mistake here. Because that digit is not, that digit is in the sum of digits from this direction, but it's also the answer to a sum in this direction. Oh, no, that can be... Oh, that's huge. Right. Oh, this is sick. Wow. That's a 6, isn't it? I think this is a 6 because, let me try and explain this. From the point of view of the right-hand dot of this string, this dot here, this digit is the sum of that loop segment. So the minimum value of that digit is 6, because it must be summing those 3 cells, which must be at least a 1, 2, 3 triple. So this is a 6 minimum, but from this dot's perspective, these 3 digits are summing up to some number here. So we couldn't have made that any bigger than 6, because then once you add those 2 digits to 6, you will get a double-digit number, which we'd have to put in one of those 2 squares, which is impossible. So this is a 6. This must be a 1-2 pair, because then otherwise it's a double-digit number here. One of those 2 squares must be a 9. And this square is a 3, and I've got digits now. Oh, no. I was about to say I can do some elimination. Oh, I can do an elimination. 9 can come out of there. I was trying to eliminate 3 from this cell, but that's not going to work. So this is now a 6, 7, or 8, which means one of those squares is now a 1. If this is 6, this is 1, 2, 3, 7, 1, 2, 4, 8, either 1, 2, 5 or 1, 3, 4. So there's definitely a 1 in this triple. How can I have had 36 minutes of this? That has, if you'd have said I'd had 5 minutes, I'd have gone, yeah, that's what it feels like. It's a sign of a puzzle where you're totally and utterly absorbed by what you're trying to figure out. So, what does that mean, though? How do we... Looks quite difficult to me. Oh no, maybe it's not. I was about to say it looks difficult for the loop to turn up. And the reason I thought that might be difficult is I could see this loop segment now would have to go miles along here. So that's going to be a 5-cell loop segment, which I then presumed would be unbalanceable in column 1, but it's actually not unbalanceable. In fact, it might not even be difficult. You might even be able to do it with a 2-cell line straight. If that could be as much as 17, I suppose, with an 8. No, it can't be 17. It could be 15. It could be an 8-7 pair. Oh, actually, yeah, you could even extend this further then. If that was 8 and 7, you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 along here and extend this again. Oh, that's weird. Okay. No, talking total nonsense then. So, what on earth do we do now? And the answer to that is I have not got a Scooby-Doo. I want to do something with these loop segments, but I can't see how to do that. I know one of these is a 9. That means this is not a 9. So how do we take this forward? And again, as usual, I'm so sorry if you're seeing some way of doing this quickly. I most certainly am not. Ah, right. That's a good thought. What is that digit? Because that digit needs to be balanced around this square. But it can't be... Yes, that square can't be a 1, can it? If this is a 1 here, then there's got to be a 1 to either here or here, which is clearly rubbish. And in fact, yes, this has to extend at least 2 in some direction in order to balance with this. So that's at least, this square here must be at least a 3, because it must be adding 2 numbers. But it can't be greater than 5. Oh no, 6. No, it can't be 6 anymore, because that can't be 9. Right, so that's 3, 4, or 5. And just to be clear of why I'm saying this, it's because whichever direction this goes in now, let's say it goes down, joins its friend here, this digit, to balance the loop, this digit is the sum of these two cells, that one and that one. And therefore, if it's summing two cells, even if I put 1 and 2 into those squares, this must be at least a 3. Does that mean I have to have a 2 in here? Ooh, no, it doesn't. Oh, I thought that might mean we had a 1-2 pair, but we don't. Well, we might have, but you could put 1-3 here. You could put 1-3-4. That's the only way that's not a 1-2 pair. If that is a 1-2 pair, ooh, I can't put 3 in those. No, that can't be a 1-2 pair, can it? If that's a 1-2 pair, how on earth do I fill this domino? Because yes, you can't fill it. It's obvious. If this is a 1-2 pair, this domino is a minimum of 4 plus 5 because it sees 3 and a 1-2. And if that domino is a minimum of 4 plus 5, that needs to be a 9 at least, and it isn't. So that is not a 1-2 pair, it's a 1-3 pair. It can't be more than... Oh no, it could be a 1-4 pair. Oh, Simon. It's either one... It's either... It could be a 1-3 pair with a 4 here, adding to 8. That's possible. Or it could be a 1-4 pair with a 3, also adding to 8. That's possible. But either way, that string of digits is a 1-3-4 triple. And that is progress, because that gives me a digit up there as an 8. And those two squares... Oh, this is beautiful. No, well, it is beautiful. Those two squares now add up to 8, and they're not 3-5, and they're not 1-7, so they're 2-6. Yeah, and that's what we thought at the start, wasn't it? I thought this domino added up to the same as those 3 digits, and indeed it does. Okay. Now what do we do? So now, how does this turn down? That is a good question. Because we know it's got to be at least too long in order, because it must sum to this digit, so it can't just be 1 cell long. And if it turns down then, because this is a 3, these two digits are either a 1-2 pair, well that doesn't work, or a 1-3 pair, which doesn't work. So it doesn't turn down. And that's another deduction. So that means this must come across. It can't turn early, or these two digits would be the same. And it must therefore turn after that, because we actually know now that this is either a 1-2 pair or a 1-3 pair. So there's definitely a 1 in this domino. There's definitely... We've got sort of X-wing on 1s in columns 3 and 4 now. It's weird as well that as you balance the loop, the central cell doesn't really matter. Okay. So now, what do we do next? Do we... I've got to put a 9 in box 1, haven't I? I'm just thinking about that. I can't put 9 in that domino, because if I do, once I add another digit to it, I've got to put that sum into there, which is not going to work. So the 9 must be in the top row. And what's that dot telling us? Is that dot telling us anything about its own nature? I don't know. One, two. Ah, right. let's look at this domino, which we know is summing to that digit. Now this domino it can't have a 1 or a 2 in it. So the minimum value of this normally would be 3 plus 4. But here it can't be 3 plus 4, or both of those cells would have to be 1. So that's not 3 plus 4. So it's at least 3 plus 5 equals 8. Well, it can't be adding up to 8 because 8's gone, so that's the 9. That's not 9 in the corner. These two squares add up to 9, and they're not 1, 8, and they're not 2, 7, and they're not 3, 6, so they're 4, 5. Which means the 4 is there in column 1. This is a 1, 3 pair, and that in the corner is a 7. And now, if this is a 4, that's not a 1, 2 pair, that's a 1, 3 pair. Good grief. Okay. Well, that's good. At least I think it's good. There's got to be a 9 in one of those two squares by little old Sudoku from these 9s. If that's a 9, I don't know. I really am one. How can that turn there? Surely that's going to break. Yeah, I don't like that turn. I think I could have done this before. If that turns, we're saying that to balance the loop, this can now never go up, or this digit and this digit are the same. So it must go down, which means these 3 squares and those 3 squares, and we have the triangle problem again. So that's got to extend. Oh, I could have done that before. Sorry. So now I've got at least 2 cells here, summing to those 3 cells down there. Ah, is that right? Surely that's right. If I turn this down, what's this digit now to balance the loop? This digit is the 9, but that means these cells here have to add up to 9. And they can't add up to 9 because they'd have to be a minimum of 2, 5, and 6 from the column's perspective. So that loop doesn't turn down. That loop must turn up, which means we can put a couple more loop segments in. Now, to balance this dot, we can place the 9 exactly there. That's not 9 anymore. This is huge because this now has to extend all the way to at least here. So to balance all of this stuff is going to be tricky now because this bottom loop segment is so long. I'm now questioning whether it's ever possible for that to be a loop segment. Because if that's a loop segment, I've got to make this go even longer. Is that possible? Let me just think about that. If I close that off and make this into a sort of snake going around the grid, then I've got to go. Then I've got to go again here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got a 5 cell string. Which is adding up to the same as those 3 cells. I'm not sure. I can't quite get my head around that actually. I sort of feel like there's something going on there because I want to say, and this might be nonsense, but bear with me, if I close the loop here, am I not saying that these 3 digits here have the same sum as those 4 digits there, which have the same sum as those however many digits this continues for there? So I'm saying those 3 cells are the same total as those 6 cells. I suppose they could add up to 21 though, couldn't they? So that is possible. Bother. Alright, sorry, that's all more nonsense from me. What I can see is that because of the way these loops have moved, I now can never access these 2 cells by way of loop. Because I can't, if the loop goes into this cul-de-sac, it literally is a cul-de-sac, it can't get out again. So we can remove those from consideration of loopiness. Do Sudoku. Whenever you get stuck, Simon, do Sudoku. You can put 4 here. Those 3 squares are now known. They are 1, 5, and 7. And that's not 1, is it? C's a 1, 3 pair. That's 5 or 7. I nearly can't see that actually. I apologise if you're struggling to see that on the camera. I need to reposition. These long videos don't do my back any good. So what does that mean? Haven't got a clue. Haven't got a clue. Every time I sort of manage to extend the loop a bit, I think, oh, now we're going to be away and there's going to be a flurry of activity, and it just seems to die a death every time. What should we do next? I have not got a clue. Is there some way? I think I've got to pay more attention to how these loops are balancing. So this digit here, no, not that digit, that circle there is summing at least 2 cells to the same sum as those 3 cells. Don't know what to do with that. 3. Oh, hang on. Hang on, I know what I can do. This was a 1, 5, 7 triple, wasn't it? So that can't be a 1. That's got to be a 3. That's got to be a 1. That gets me a 1, 2 pair resolved at the bottom of the grid. Yeah, Sudoku is your friend. Never forget that. Three. It might be my friend, but it's not. It's not really helping, if I'm honest. What would be nice if that had to be a big digit, because then I might be able to force this one to continue. What are the options for this square? This square sees 1, 3, 4 in its column. Or from its box it needs to be 2, 6, 8 or 9, doesn't it? I don't think anything's ruled out. It can't be can it be 2? No, maybe it can be 2. This is so weird. These squares are 2, 6, 8 or 9. Now I was going to say this can't be 2. I think that's just nonsense. I think if that's a 2 and that's a 1, to balance this digit here, I need a 3 on one side of it, but I could get a 3 here. So that's fine. There is nothing wrong with that. Ah. No, I might be wrong about the thought I just had there as well. I'm so bad at this. I am so bad at this. I don't understand. I don't understand. I really don't want this dot. If this dot goes up or down, that feels to me like it matters. And the reason for that, obviously, is it's then going to turn. So to balance this dot, we're balancing it versus a single digit total. Now problem is this could balance against a single digit total, I think. Right, that's absolutely evil. Or is it? Oh, that might be possible actually. Those can't have a 9 in it. That actually might, bizarrely, that might matter. Does it matter? Wow. Wow. Okay. I think I can disprove that this loop turns now. I think. Well, I'm going to have to check this quite carefully because it's obviously a fairly fundamental deduction. But my argument is that if it goes either up or down, there is a problem. Houston, we have a problem. And let me try and explain. It might be easier to consider it going up, actually, because I think if it goes up, it has the ability to turn here as well, which it doesn't if it turns down. So let's consider whether it could turn up. Now, if it turns up, that domino has a maximum size of 6 plus 8, which is 14. Now, if we go down, it's the same. The maximum size of this domino is 14 still. Oh no, 15. Bobbins. Okay, well we will. I think it isn't possible for it to do that still. But anyway, let's consider this. If this is 6 and 8, 14. Now to balance the loop, that's telling us those 3 squares also sum to 14. At the moment, thus far in the solve, whenever I've considered a dot, I've been thinking about them a bit like arrows. So I've been able to say that that cell is the sum of those 2 cells. But here, I don't want to do that. Instead, I want to consider the cell that's on the circle as well, because it's the only way I can see of actually working out some logic. So if this goes up, those 2 cells are the same sum as those 3 cells, which are the same sum as those 4 cells, which are the same sum as those 6 cells. Now, you can't make 6 cells add up to less than 21. We've done that already several times. Although, I'm now wondering why this dot has gone so far. How do I know this extends there and it doesn't stop there? If it stops there and closes... Yeah, I think that's a remnant of when I was considering whether that turned down. I think this might be able to stop here. But it's still, fortunately, okay. And I think it's okay either way round. So what I'm saying is, these add up to 14 maximum. But that's adding, they must add to the same because of the dottages all around, dot relationships. The same as those 5 cells, which must add up to at least 15. Because that's a triangular number for 5. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 is 15. That doesn't work. Now, what happens instead... Oh, so we're going to have to deal with this, I think. If this turns down... Now, if this turns down, we might at first blush think we've got out of jail, because that's an 8 and that's a 7. And that's 15, which is the triangular number for 5. But now I've closed the loop off. I've got to extend this. So I'm actually saying that these 2 cells have to be the sum of those 3 cells, have to be the sum of those 4 cells, have to be the sum of those 6 cells, and that breaks the bank. So that, I think, is a very long-winded way of saying that this cell has to extend that way, which means this cell has to, this cell has to extend this way. Now, what does that mean? Oh no. I think I'm getting bogged down in this part of the grid. I think there's probably other things I should be looking at here. It's just, I have got some digits over on the left side, so I sort of feel like it would be madness to just disregard this, wouldn't it? I don't like the thought that this loop segment could do that. If that loop segment does that, it's putting such a lot of pressure on. Although, actually, is it now? Once this extends, no, it's less. Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Because I've extended the loop through this dot, this one hasn't turned yet. From this one's perspective, it's summing these down here, and it's summing these. But because this hasn't turned, it could be quite a long sum. This is weird. How do I know? I want to know whether this carries on. It stops here. If it stops here, then these 2 digits have to add to a single digit total, which means one of them at least must be a 1 or a 2. Is it parity? I'm just noticing this cell is even, and that cell is adding up something this side, where however long this line segment goes, whatever it sums to is the same as those 2 cells. So all of these cells together in this row, whatever this line, this circle is seeing in the row until the turn, adds up to an even number. But that means those cells are summing to an even number as well. That's right, isn't it? Let me just think about this, sorry. I'm getting confused between whether I put the dot in the sum or I don't put it in the sum, but I think because it's sort of adding and subtracting itself, it's okay to include it in the sum. Well, by that, what I mean is I could view this line segment, this cell here, as requiring these digits to wherever this line ends. Let's extend it to make it clear. I'm arguing that the line might go here. It doesn't matter how far it goes. But what we're saying is that we could view this dot as equating those cells with these cells. That would be one way of the loop being balanced. But if I add the same digit in to both sides of that equation, that's fine as well. I'm just saying that those 6 cells add to those 4 cells, and that's also true. So, that being the case, because of this dot, and knowing that this domino must sum to the same as the cells on the right hand side of this dot, however many there are. That one side of this will be x, the other side will be an x, so they sum to 2x. 2x plus a digit 2, 6 or 8 is still even. So that string is even, which means that string is even. Now the secret tells us that the column is odd. 7 plus 1 plus 3 plus 4 is 15. So that's 15, which is odd, plus an even number, which is still odd. So that has to be even. And it's not therefore 9. Right, good grief. That is very complicated. 9 goes here. I've got to unextend this line because that was conjecture. I don't know how far this line goes. I worked out it did extend at least. It doesn't extend one. It doesn't extend one cell anymore because I've got a 9 on this side of the dot here. So the minimum that this domino adds up to is 10. So the minimum this adds up to is 10. So if I was to try and just put 10 into one cell, it would break. So it must be at least 2 cells, which means that's got to extend. That can't close. Look here. If I close, that's closing a loop. That's not going to work. So that 6 now must turn down. Now this can't close here. Oh, I've closed the loop, so that must extend. This is going to be an enormous video. I'm so sorry for that. I mean, I'm sorry and I'm not. I'm never sure whether you guys want to see enormously long videos. I mean, the viewings do suggest that you do enjoy them, and that's fantastic. You can tell hopefully you can tell how much I love solving puzzles like this. It's just, it goes along against all the rules we're told about YouTube. You know, if you throw out a 2-hour-long video of some nerd solving Sudoku puzzles, it doesn't sound like it's going to make for good television. But we hope that once in a while you don't object to it. Okay, so now what do we do? We shall... So now I know that this dot here, let's go back to this dot here sees those 3 squares, which include a 9. So the minimum value of those squares would be 925, which is 16. So the minimum value of these is 16, so the minimum value of those is 12. That's not difficult. I don't think that's difficult at all. Okay. So, sorry, I'm very sorry if you can see an easy way forward here. I'm struggling to see it myself. I've not thought about the negative constraint at all. Do I need to think about the negative constraint? What is that doing? That is telling us that I mustn't be able to, in theory, put dots into the puzzle. So is that affecting this at all? No. Is it affecting this at all? No, I haven't got enough digits to know, I think. Okay. So how do we do this then? How do we do this? I've not got any idea. Is this white dot somehow important? Do we know what this is doing? If this turns into it here, then this couldn't go left anymore because it would have to go 2 cells. It could go right. Could go up. No, that doesn't seem a fruitful way to continue, does it? What about if that turns down? That's going to force that loop segment, which forces that not to turn down, because otherwise this digit and this digit would be the same. Don't really see a problem there. No, okay, don't know. This loop segment here. Okay, well I do know that this one has to go there, doesn't it? Because if it didn't, if this turned, it's definitely turning on the other side of the dot as well. So that would suggest that digit and that digit have to be the same to balance the loop, and that's not going to work. So that does extend there. Now that means, yes, okay, actually this can't come too far to the left, can it? Hang on a minute. That's huge. Isn't that really important, or have I missed a trick here? What I want to say oh no, I'm wrong. No, maybe I'm not, actually. Maybe I'm not. How does this dot take its 2 loop segments? It must have 2 loop segments coming out in the directions north, east, south and west. Now, I'm just gonna pontificate for a moment that this is closed off at the top, so it doesn't take a northerly radial. I think that's broken the puzzle, because it now has to take 2 loop segments from just 3 directions. Now it clearly can't take those 2 because it would have to turn and those 2 digits would be the same, so that's not possible. But that means it must take exactly 1, either like that and then extending here, which means this digit would have to be the sum of 4 cells to the right. That's nonsense. Or down, and this digit would have to be the sum of 4 cells to the right. That's also nonsense. So this digit must have a loop segment to the north of it. Now, does it have to have more than 1? I think it does. Because if we think about which other loop segment accompanies the northern radial, if it's a southerly one, obviously this must then extend, because otherwise this digit and this digit are the same. If it's a westerly one, because it has to close there, again this would have to extend. And if it's an easterly one, it either turns, in which case this must extend to prevent this digit and this digit being the same, or it extends and creates an enormous long string, which is at least 4 digits long. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 is 10, which again forces that to extend. So I think whatever happens, this goes up 2. Okay. And that means what exactly? feel like that should be in some way important, but I can't see how. I just can't see how. We could... Now if that turns up, what does that mean for the world? If that turns up... Oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that as a response to that, because that would force the loop to close. I think that's got a few options up there, though. I can't immediately see how to resolve. There's a lot of loop segments coming into this section, so it'd be a long bifurcation to work out what it did next. Maybe it's easier to disprove whether that comes down. If that comes down, it has to turn that way. Should force this to extend. Does that matter somehow? I'm sorry, I was trying to delete this loop segment. Why have I got an X in here? How on earth have I proved that? How on earth have I got an X in there? Is that just a misclick I've just done? I don't understand how I know this stops. Oh, maybe... Oh, no, maybe it was... So what this dot is telling us is I sum those two digits. And it's got to be balanced on this side. So why can't that be a 4-cell string? Adding up to, say, 16. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that could work. No, I don't like that dot. I'm not... Sorry, that X. I'm not convinced that's true. Can we prove... Oh dear, I don't know what to do. I'm so sorry about this. Ah, good grief, right. Yeah, hang on, that doesn't have a dot in it. So how can... God, blimey O'Reilly. If this is a 7, that's 137 and that's 137. And that would need a dot here. So that's not 7 by the negative constraint. Oh, I even looked for that before. So that's 5. I've got a 1-7 pair here now. Yes, okay, sorry. I can do more. I can do more with negative constraints, can't I? Look at these squares. Because if that's a 3 and that's a 1, that square should have a dot because it has a 7 until a turn north of it and a 7 below it until the turn. That doesn't work. So that's a 3 and that's a 1. Oh dear, I had not appreciated this at all. So there's going to be all sorts of negative constraintage that we need to study. Where else could that exist? I don't think it can exist in those strings. Not sure. So what have we learned from this? We've learned this square is not a 5. I wasn't really thinking it was or wasn't a 5 before. So this from this domino's perspective, we've either got 10 here or we've got 16. maybe we've got to look at those squares as well. We've got to, those squares are from 2, 5, 6 and 8. There's definitely a 5 in them, look, by Sudoku. So what does that mean? What does that mean? That means that is there some way that I'm not appreciating that I should be able to understand the nature of this string of digits or this string of digits? I don't know is the answer. If that's 10, then there's 10 on this side of that. Oh, hang on. Maybe it's as simple as arithmetic, is it? If that's 16, then I've got to put 16 over here. Ah, yeah, hang on, that's a sensible thought. Right, if that's 9, 7, then I must put some number of digits to the right of this line that add up to 16. So that means that the minimum value of this string is 2 lots of 16, which is 32, plus 2, which is 34. So that means those digits have to add up to 34 as well, don't they? And if they add up to 34 and they add up to 15, that's already far too many for this column. That cannot work. So that's a 1, and that's a 7. Okay, right, now we might be off to the races. So now I know this is 10. There's 10 over here somewhere. So I've got 20. So I could have as few as 22 into these squares. So if that's 22, and that was 15, that would be an 8. That would work. Wow, okay. So if it's 26, that would need to be a 4, wouldn't it? I don't think this can be a 6. Might be wrong about this. I'm just going to double check that. 10 plus 6 plus 10 is 26. That means those add up to 26 to balance the loop. 26 and 15 is 41, so that should be a 4 by the secret. It's not. Right, that's not 6. If this is 8, we get 28 here, so we get 28 here. Ah, no, 43, and that can be a 2. Ah! So this is 2 or 8. It's not. Ah, okay, so that's 2. That's a 2-8 pair, so that's a 6. So now these two digits to complete this column are just 2 7s and 8s. There's definitely a 7 down here. And there's definitely a 5 and a 6 down here now. So that feels quite important, doesn't it? That definitely feels like progress. Let me just think about this. So now I know some number of digits. So, well, yes, okay. So now I know that if... Oh, it doesn't actually matter what that digit is, does it? It doesn't matter what that digit is. I know there are some digits along here that add up to 10. So if it's a domino, that's quite interesting, because that square being a 2 or an 8 means it's not a 2-8 pair. So it's either 4, 6. So I might pencil mark this. If this is a domino, 6 would have to go here, and the 4 would have to go here. or it could be 3, 7. Or it could be 3 cells but without a 1, and it would be 2, 3, 5. I don't think that matters. I'm not sure, but I can't see how that's... So these squares, if it was 2, 3, 5, that would be have the additional option of being a 5. That could be 2 or 5. So I think these are the only options for this domino. But that's not it's not even interesting, is it? Oh no, hang on. If that turns up, it's interesting. That turns up, this square already can't be several low digits. 2. You can't put a 1 into either of those squares. Wow, okay, that gets really, really, really interesting. If that turns up now, how on earth does that work? Because now this digit is the sum of at least 2 cells up here. Now, that square could be a 2, that is true. Maybe it can work actually. It's very restricting on this. Annoyingly, I think this could even go 1 more cell. And then these digits would have to be a 1, 2, 4 triple. That would have to be 2. This would have to be a 1 in the circle with a 4 beneath it. And that would have to be a 7, and that would have to be a 3. But I don't think I can disprove it. I'm so sorry if you're seeing a way of doing that. I can't see how to do it. 1 has to be in one of those cells. So there is there can't be a 1 here, because that's going to act as the sum of these 2 cells or these 3 cells, depending on how long this line segment is. So there is a 1 on this line segment. Right, here's something. Here's something. Rather than trying to disprove this, I might be able to disprove this. Yeah, I think I can. Because if this is 2, 3, 5, which is the only way that this line segment comes to this square, because these 3 squares now have to add up to 10 without using a 1. If that's 2, 3, 5, there's a 3, 5 up here. So that string of digits is 1, 3, 5, and that's not doable. Because this square now would have to be the 5, because it's summing these 2 at least. These definitely don't add up to 5, and if I add another digit on, they still won't add up to 5. So that's nonsense. So that means that this doesn't extend to here, which means it must turn up, and that's massive. That's massive, because now surely I get a handle on this digit, because this digit now is summing at least 2 cells, neither of which can be a 1. So that's a minimum of a 2, 3. So this is Yeah, this is so beautiful. Yeah, this is a 7. Because once it's summing 2 digits that can't be a 1, it's adding up to at least 5. But if this was a 5, that would also be a 5, because this to make this balance, that has to add up to 10. That doesn't work. So that's got to be 7. That's got to be 3. Good grief. Okay. So now what? Now do we know whether this extends into here? That's the question I'm wondering about. Oh, one thing I know that's interesting is that this now has to turn up. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So this can't... Oh, hang on. Oh no, I was about to say, I've got to be careful about closing this loop here. I mean, I can see that this is not that. That's clearly ruled out now. But I already know that from this being a 7. If this stops here, this domino adds up to 7. So this couldn't be 3, 4. It could perhaps be, or 1, 6. It would have to be 2, 5 in a very particular order. And then this would have to do that. Oh, no, that could just do that. Oh, no. Oh, Simon. Oh. Okay. So if this goes into here, this has to be 1, 2, 4 now. It has to turn. This can't close, so it would have to do this. I don't see what's wrong with that. I might be missing a trick, but I don't see what's wrong with that. Oh, why have I got an X here now? Because that makes me want to extend that there. Is that because I was thinking about that being 1, 2, 4 and I put an X in? Why can't that do that? If it does that, it can't do that. That's actually quite straightforward for once in this puzzle. If it does that, the problem it is for this line segment now, which has to turn and cannot connect to its friend. Otherwise we've closed the loop in the top left, so it has to do that. And now this dot has the same digit in those 2 squares because we have to balance. So that is wrong. Whoopsie, I'm getting into trouble with my dottages. Now, so this doesn't turn up. So it does extend. And now... Yeah, well that's interesting, because that's now got to extend again. Because this is 9 adding to 2 more digits. So had this turned, this single digit would have had to be the sum of 3 digits including a 9, which is clearly nonsense. So that extends at least 1 more. No, this is beautiful. Good grief. Right. I've got 1, 2 and 3 looking at that square. So the minimum value of those 2 squares is a 4 and a 1, which is 14. So if I leave this as a 2-cell domino, I've got to make this domino add up to 14 without using 9 and 8. That's impossible. So I think this has to extend again. So now, can it extend again is the question I'm wondering. If it extends again, it's interesting. Because the reason that's interesting is we can use the secret on the row. If this comes into the corner and turns, then because we know the whole row adds to 45 and those 2 squares add up to 15, these squares must add up to 30, which means to balance the loop, those would add up to 15 and these would add up to 15. But if these add up to 15 including a 9, these 2 squares have to add up to 6, which means this is a 4 or a 5 and this is a 1 or a 2. And very annoyingly, that seems actually maybe not even just plausible, but likely. Right, so let's have a think about this dot now. Oh, yes, okay. Yes, this is important because this dot cannot go north of itself anymore. So if we think about the three directions, it's got to have two radials coming off it. This would be an impossible. We can't go south and west, east, because this would be isolated and not be able to connect to anything. So we actually already know, before we do any thinking, that this must turn there, and then connect. Right, so now how can this come down? Because if this comes down, this cell has to be the sum of 4 cells including a 7, and that is impossible. So actually, this must do that, which means this must turn. Right, now this domino adds up to 7, and it's not 3, 4 or 1, 6, so it's 2, 5, and we can actually write that in. That's 2, 5. We've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quintuple now, so those squares are 6, 7, 8, and 9. That is not 7. I wouldn't normally pencil mark that in, but in this puzzle I sort of feel any minor breakthrough like that is worth recording. Beautiful again. How could this turn? If it turns, though, this square and this square to balance the loop are the same digit, so that's not true. So this must extend. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, look. I'll do some Sudoku. That's 5 and that's 4. There's a 5 up there now. And 4. 6 in the middle box is in one of those two positions. So 6 in box number 2 is in one of those 3 cells. Yes, indeed. Not very articulate, Simon, but it's probably some negative constraint that I'm not seeing. It's either that or Sudoku. I don't know. I've not got a clue where to look again. Even though I sort of feel like we're gradually making our way into a world where, you know, a finish might be possible. I mean, the problem is I might well have made a mistake already. The logic here has felt very, very tricky. How do we make more progress at the top? I know that this digit is the same as some number of digits to the right here. I know that these 3 digits are the same as either those 3 digits or those 4 digits. Is there some way we can figure that out? What were the options I was thinking about? I was wondering whether if this went to the end, wasn't I? I can't remember. Oh yeah, 15. Is 15 possible here? 4 here, 2. Oh, I can't put a... That doesn't seem to work anymore. That's weird, yeah. This 2-5 pair has ruled out both ways of making 6 in that domino, bizarrely. Because obviously 5 here rules out 1-5, but the 2 here, yeah, you can't put a 2 in that string of digits. Good grief. Okay, that's important, because that means that this, yeah, it means that this doesn't extend to the end. This cannot add up to 15. So now that's got to turn. So what does that mean? Doesn't that mean that this domino has to add up to less than 15? Because if it adds up to 15, we've done the row already. 15 plus 15 plus 15 is 45, and that would have to be a 0, yeah. So this has to add up to... So this domino has to add up to less than 6, but that squares a 4 as a minimum. So that must be a 4 and that must be a 1, and this adds up to 14. That adds up to 14 then. So you've got 28 plus 15, and that's a 2 at the end of the row. So that's not a 2. Good grief. Now these 3 squares have got to be 3, 5 and 6 to complete the row, and we know that's not a 5 for some reason. In fact, it's not a 6 either. There's a 6 in one of those. So that's a 3. That's a 5, 6 pair. 3 by Sudoku is in one of those 2 cells. 6. Now, can we keep this going? Is there more magic that we can find? I don't know. Is the answer. Can I do anything with that dot now? Oh, yes. In fact, let's do something not with the dot, but with the loop. I can't close the loop. Look, that will close the loop. So that must turn. So now, this cell is the sum of 2 cells, not 3 cells. But that digit, I think, can be a lot of different things. It can't be 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So it's got to be 6, 7, 8, or 9. It's summing those 2. You can not even rule out... I was going to say you can't rule out 6, but I can actually rule out 6. Yes, I can rule out 6, because if I put 6 there, that becomes a 2, and now I can't put 1, 5, or 2, 4 into there. So that's so that gets me to 6. Beautiful. So I get a 6 in box number 2, which gets me a 6 and a 2, which gets me a 2 on the line. That's going to be huge. So now this digit has to be, can't be that can't be 5, so that can't be 7. This has got to be 9. If that's 8, that's got to be 6, and that doesn't work. So that's got to be 9. That's got to be 7, I think. These 2 that's a 7 now in that box, and that's an 8. I've done another box out of nowhere. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I've got all the digits in it. Wow. Okay. Good. That's good news. So now these 2 squares might be knowable. They are a 1 and a 4. And those squares have now got to be 3, 8, and 9. Now, can we do anything with those? We've got one more dot in box 3 to use. Right, so how can this jump in here and do that? It can't, because then this dot is telling us that this square, which can be a 1 or a 4, is the sum of something on its other side. But it's either going to hit... well, clearly this couldn't be a 1 then. If it's a 4, I need to make a 1, 3 pair the other side, or find a 4 somehow that's not in the same column, and there's nothing available. So that doesn't work. This doesn't take into this square. It comes out to here. Now I mustn't close the loop, so that's... oh no. I was about to say, hoping that this would be forced down, but actually I've just noticed this is a loop segment, so that could just close. Okay, this cell must be in the loop, so that's got to be forcing this. So, perfect, right, so that's not a 3 now, because then this square would have to be a 3, and clearly it's already going to blow the bank. Well, okay. So this is quite interesting. Whatever this square is irrelevant. Whatever this square is not irrelevant, because if that's 8 or 9, that could actually be the same digit, or it could be a lower digit, although that can't be a 1 or a 2, actually. Hang on a minute, is that possible then? If that's a 3... Bother, yeah, that might be possible. I was just thinking, if this is 3, that can be 6 and that could be 9. It's the only way that works. Otherwise, those two digits are definitely the same. And actually, look, we have got 3s looking into this box as well. That's really frustrating. So if this is a 3, then those do have to be the same, because you can't put a 3 there anymore. And in fact, that would make this a 4, which would look rather beautiful. It would unwind that up there. But if that's a 3, that has to be a 1-2 pair, doesn't it? To make this dot work. And that would be useful as well, because that would resolve the 2 and the 8 over on that side. Wow. Okay. So now what do we do? That's the next question. We shall 2-7. That's so annoying. Maybe I've got to do more Sudoku. Column 5 is quite restricted now. That can only take the digits 3, 4 and 9, I think. Let's put that in and see if we can do anything with that. 3, 4 and 9, that doesn't seem to be able to be a 3, so that central cell is 4 or 9. Can we do anything with that? I was wondering about the negative constraint. I was thinking if that was a 4, that would add up to 11, but that doesn't add up to 11, so that doesn't work. Okay. What about this column? We've got to put 5, 7s and 8s into... that's only 5 or 8 therefore. Is that helpful? These are 5s, 7s or 8s. 7, so 7's a line here. Could put 7 over here, not there. Can we put 7 on this line? Only just, actually. If that was a 7, this dot becomes interesting, because we know that these have to add up to a single digit total, because this is going to turn and then have to turn again. So that would have to be a 1 or a 2, and unfortunately it seems to be able to be both. It's not 7. Don't know. Okay, so let's try and do something down here, shall we? Can we do... What dots have I not used in the bottom of the grid? I've used that one. I've used that one. I don't think I know which way these turn yet. It's getting quite hard to even see the line now. I've got so many pencil marks. I can see that these cells add up to the same as those cells. Can we do anything with that? Don't know. I'm so sorry. I'm sure that there's something easy that or easy. No, not easy. It's glipperal. Something easier that I could have made progress with here. I'd love to finish the loop. That would feel like a triumph. Just to finish this loop would feel like amazing. You know, like I'd achieved something today. 7s, 8s. Can we... If that turns, this would be an 8 or a 9. It would be the same as that. I'd have to put 8 or 9 on this string of digits. 8, 1, 9 is still possible, I think. And if this doesn't turn, it has to go down. You can't put 1 here, so this would have to be, and you can't put 2 here. Yeah, so if it goes down, you have to go 3, and you have to go 6. Okay, so that square is only 6, 8, or 9. It's never 7, and that means 7 in the row goes here. 7 in that row goes there. So 7 is not on this string of digits. World's Most Useless Deduction, Volume 10. Is it this row? No, that can't be a 2 or a 6. That can't be 2 or 6. I haven't seen that before. So that square there is a 5 or an 8 only. So this row, perhaps? We need 4s, 5s, 8s and 9s, although I don't see very much. Well that is helpful, because both of those can't be 9s, because they're on sort of long, they're on 2-cell arrows that add to a single digit total, either this one or this one for this one. So neither of those are 9. That means 9 is there. 9 is not in those 2 squares anymore, so that's become a 3-4 pair, which means there's a 9 in the middle of the grid, which means that's not a 9. So I've got a 9 in one of those 2 cells now, for sure. Got a 3-4 pair down here. Oh, no, I haven't. I've got a 4 there. So that's a 3, and that's a 4. Three in that box has to be in one of 3 places. 5, 8. There's definitely a 4 in one of those 2 cells. Doesn't quite align with the 4s up at the top, though. Now I know 3 of the digits that are relevant for this dot, don't I? And they add up to 14. So I've got 14 here, plus either a 2, 5, or an 8. So 14, so it's either 16, 19, or 22 for these 3 squares. 16, 19, or 22. How do we do that? 16, 19, or 22. It's hard to remember all these. I can see 22 is quite easy. Could do 9, 8, 5. 16 looks harder. 16 you'd have to use the 2 and the 5. And the 8. what was the other one? 19. 19 here. You've got to go... Oh, what have you got to go then? 19 could be 5... No. Oh, 289 would work. So in 2 of the options, you've got the 2 here. Otherwise, you've got 589. 2 here puts the 8 here. The 2 here. I don't see what's wrong with this. Is there more eliminations we can do down here, perhaps, to try and limit the options for this? You can see we've got to add 1 more digit in here. But I don't think there is. I think I've already done those eliminations. Oh dear. We're going to go way over 2 hours. Oh no. Oh dear. I am sorry. I know some of you don't like me saying sorry, but I feel very bad that I'm wasting a lot of your time. I hate the thought I'm doing that. Time is, after all, one of the most precious things we have. See, negative constraint. See, that I think at this point of the solve is the most terrifying thing for me, because I'm really struggling to see those. You know, there could be some negative constraint along there that I'm just not appreciating. So I'm trying to divide these lines desperately to see whether or not I can do something with them, but I can't see how to do it. It would be absolutely evil if that's required at this point, Glipperall. I'm just telling you that. 1. Okay, there's a 1 in one of those 2 squares. Oh, do I know anything about this line? There's no dots on that line. So yeah, negative constraint would be useful there. I mean, like, if that was a 5 and that was a 1, that would be broken, because there should be a dot here and there wouldn't be one. But the problem is that doesn't have to be the 1. That could be the 1. Is that the reason that can't? No, that could still close, I think. That closes, that would be... I don't think that's against the negative constraint. This dot is done. This dot is done. It doesn't look very done, but it is really done. This dot is the one that I think... It feels like we should be able to whittle this down a bit further. So we've got 3, 4. Yeah, this is the one where we've got 14 plus either a 2, 5 or an 8. There's not any negative constraint along here. Oh, there is. Ooh. Yeah, you can't... Oh, good grief. Wow, okay. Well, maybe that's not evil. That's just me overlooking it. But I can see immediately, now I think about it, if that's a 2, I've got a problem here. Because that becomes an 8, and that becomes a 5, 6 pair. And 5 and 6 add up to the same as 2 and 9, and there should be a dot on this line, and there isn't. So that can never be a 2. Whoa! And that does nothing. Ah, no, it does. Well, no, I'm maligning the absence of a 2 here slightly. It does do something, because it now... What does it do? Well, it rules out... Doesn't it rule this square out from being a 2? Because now I can't make these digits add up to less than 20. so I can't make these digits add up to less than 20, so I can't have a 2 here. So now we know we're either looking at 19 or 22 for these digits. Oh, no, this is beautiful. I've forgotten that. 19 is also impossible if you haven't got a 2 here. Because you need to put you needed to pair the 2 up with the 8. There's no other way to make a domino adding up to 10 here. Wow, so this is adding up to 22, which means we can take the 5 out of that square. So that becomes a 7-8 pair. Quite see how that's doing anything. I'm sure it's doing something here though, because now I need to make these add up to 22, which means that I need to go, I can't have a 6 in them, can I? That's the point. So this has to be 5, 8, 9, and that has to be a 2, and that has to be an 8. And that square at the bottom therefore has to be a 6. And that 5, 8 pair here means that's got to be a 7, that's got to be an 8, and that's got to be a 2, and that's got to be a 5, and that's got to be a 7. Good grief. Okay, and now I know those squares in theory are, not in theory, in actual fact are a 1, 5 pair. There's probably some other negative constraint that's resolving this 5, 8 pair, but I can't see what it is. But now I know what those squares are. These have got to be 4s, 6s and 8s. And that's not 8, and that's not 6. So this is all getting a little bit clustered, isn't it? Now how has that really helped though? That's the question we need to wrestle with. How is that going to help us get into the rest of this grid? Indeed, is it going to let us get into the rest of the grid? So now, have we learnt? Maybe I've just got to do more pencil marking. So these squares are now 1s, 2s, 5s or 9s. Now that cannot be a 1 because it's summing those 2 digits at least. It can't be a 2 for the same reason, because it's summing 2 digits at least. So that's now 5 or 9. This digit, that's on the dot. It's on the dot, so that doesn't actually, I think, get as restricted as the others do. That can't be 2 by Sudoku. Ah, so where does 2 go in the bottom row? 2 is on that dot. 2. Yeah, so 2 gets placed in box 6. So maybe we look along this row. We need 4s, 5s and 6s. We know there's a 5 in this domino. Desperately looking for something here, I'm not seeing it. Or this, maybe this sort of weird almost arrow that we've got going on here. 1, 3, hang on, sorry, I just want to go to that. 1, 3, 4 and 8. And we know that can't be a 1 and that can't be a 3 now because that can't add up to a 1, 2 pair. So this is 4 or 8. Ah, so there's a 4, 8 pair in the row. Wow. So there's a 1, 3 pair here. 1, 3 pair. Oh, that's bizarre. That doesn't work. Well, it does work, but it doesn't. It means I still don't know what that is. Because if that's 8, I could extend the loop into this square and get a 4, and that would work. Or it's a 4 with a 1, 3 pair, and it turns now. Ah! Okay. But that means that, yes, this is beautiful. Good grief. Right, so now I can think harder about this square, This square can't extend down, can it? Because that would be a 6 plus a 4 adding up to give a single digit total, which is wrong. That won't work. So, sorry. So I'm trying to get rid of that loop segment. So that stops and turns, which means that square is no longer able to be a 6. These two are the same digit. Let's highlight those and in a different colour. I'll make those red. So this is turned, which means this loop segment now must turn downwards rather than upwards, which doesn't actually seem to do anything. This must extend again. Don't close the loop. So that's forced to be a... So that closes the loop at the top. Well, not the loop, it closes sort of that edge bit of it. Now, what does that mean though? And does this resolve any of this? That's the other question I'm sort of grappling with. 4, 5, 6. This must be resolved somehow. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. Okay, let's try and figure out this digit, because this digit, I was about to say, we might be able to force this to turn the loop, but I don't know if we can, because the 2 above it would seem to allow the loop to extend up. So we've got 1, 3, 5, 6, 8 into this square. 5, 6, 8. Now it can't be 8 because that would have to be a double digit number. It can't be 6 because that would force that to be a double digit number as well. If it's 5, it's got to be 5, 4, 9 very precisely. That can be 8. Oh no. There must be an 8 or a 9 on this string as well, mustn't there? So one of those two digits is that repeated digit here. So it's either 9, 8. No, it's not. It could be 9, 9, 4, 5, and that would be the red digit, and that would work. 2, 3. Or how could this actually? How could that? No, that could be 5. Oh no, that can't be. That's the point, isn't it? That can't be 5. How could that be 5? It could, from the point of view of this being a 5, a 4, and a 1. That would work, but it wouldn't work regarding us needing to put this high digit down here. So that's a 9. That's a 1, 5 pair in the bottom row, and this isn't. Oh, hang on. Oh, bother. I don't think this one can be a 5 now, because there'd be no way of making either that domino or that triomino add up to 9. So that's 4 or 8, but unfortunately 4, 3, 2 might work, or 8, 1. 4, 3, 2 or 8, 1. That can't. Or 5, 4. I don't believe it. So there's still 3 ways of making that 9 arrow work. That doesn't seem remotely plausible that that could be true, but I think it is. So we've just got to finish this off. That's all we've got to do. Just finish off this little puzzle. I don't know how to do it though. So is there... Please don't be a negative constraint. Please, that's all I ask you, because I could be here till kingdom come trying to find it. So I think we are going to end up with a fully pencil marked grid, aren't we? That seems inevitable. 1, 3, 5, 6, 8. 1, 3, 5, 6 and 8. Now, maybe I can... So if this turns this way, that's not going to work anymore. This is too low. Yeah. So if the loop turns this way, this digit, this 1 or 5, has to be the sum. Oh no, it can. I don't believe it. It can work with a 5 here. If it turns the other way, these have to add up to 9, and there's a multitude of ways it can do that. I must be going crazy. I must be going crazy. I'm so sorry. Right. So there's going to be something here that is going to be important, and I just have to figure out what it is. Can we somehow... My phone is going nuts at the moment as well. I don't think that's anything important though. What's it going to be? What's going to be the thing that allows us to finish this puzzle? This is a 3, 8 or a 9. I know these are 8 and 9. I know one of these squares is red, but don't think I know which one. There could also be some sort of weird triple or quadruple in one of these columns. Yeah, okay. There you go. Where does 9 go in column 8? That's a weird question, isn't it? But apparently it goes there. That's the only place it can go. So we get 2 9s into those squares. Which means that's not 9 anymore. That therefore was the 9. Well, it was the red cell. Now how does that help us? Or does it not help us? So this is 3 or 8 now. 1, 3, 5. I don't know. In this row, 6 is in one of those two positions. That doesn't seem helpful. This is crazy. This is crazy. Is it? I don't know whether it's loop logic or Sudoku I'm missing, or a combination. You know, having to use them both to somehow look further into this. There is definitely now. Look, if we look down this column and ask where 8 is, then I think I'm right in saying 8 is in this domino. That's pretty important, isn't it? Definitely can't be here. Doesn't seem to be able to be up there. So if 8 is on this, then that leads to many marvellous things. The first marvellous thing is that this must add up to 9. This loop segment here. So it must be an 8-1 pair, and we can see the order. So it must be that way round. The second marvellous thing is that becomes a 4. Which doesn't resolve this digit still. It could be a 5 or it could be a 3-2 pair. All we know is that that's a 1 and that's a 5. It's not a 5 anymore. So in order to make this work, this loop segment does have to be. Whoa, okay, that's a surprise. It has to go up there and then turn. That's turning already, so it must turn there. Can't turn down here or it's going to make a little loop in the bottom of the grid. So that's forced, that's forced. This 1, yeah, hang on, we might be getting somewhere here. 5 goes here. This square in the corner is now a 6. 5 and 8 are done over on the left-hand side of the grid. This is a 1-3 pair. Still not resolving, of course, this 4-8 thing. 3 means we get an 8-3 at the top. We get a 1-4 at the top. We get a... Surely this is 5-6 is done, isn't it? Maybe it's not. That's a 4. So that's a 6. That's an 8. That's a 4. That's an 8. Good grief. So the loop... Oh, which we could have seen from the loop as well. Well, actually, maybe I couldn't have seen it from the loop, but I'm just studying the loop for a moment now, and I can see that's a fourth segment, and that's a fourth segment. This is a fourth segment. That's a fourth segment. That might be the loop done. In fact, I think the puzzle's done. Because that's got to be a 6. That's a 6. That's a 5. That's a 5. I think I've done it. Yes! 2 hours 15 minutes. That is an absolute beast. Well, if it took the test as a month, it's not perhaps the worst time ever. But that's one of the hardest puzzles I've ever seen in my life. I thought, Glipperl, you deserve the fear. I mean, you deserve all the plaudits as well, because that's extraordinary. That you've constructed that. I've got no idea, even now, whether I was meant to approach this entirely differently. I have a horrible feeling that there may be some sort of meta logic you can do, which would enable me to be rather smoother in how elegant that solve looked. But I'm actually quite proud I managed to do it at all. Although I'll get a load of comments now saying self-praise is no praise. I'm not really giving myself praise. I'm just relieved. I'm relieved I've managed to solve it. And I do think it's another masterpiece. I mean, that you'd have the idea of creating a balanced loop Sudoku, and you manage to do it without any digits in the grid, just by plumping a load of circles into a 9x9 grid. It's quite exceptional setting. It is quite exceptional setting. I know there will be constructors watching this video. Drop a comment in and give Glipperl some love, because that is not a task you'd want to attempt if your life depended on it, and to execute it so beautifully. There were some wonderful moments in that. I think one of the things I was impressed with was how central cells in boxes seem to be restricted. And I loved the parity argument. There was a parity thing I did down here that was really cute, that got me a 9. Yeah, it's magnificent. It's magnificent. And I don't mind taking my time discussing it with you, because I feel I've taken enough of your time. You won't mind if I spend 1 minute at the end eulogising about Glipperl's abilities and his brain. But thanks so much for watching. If you are still here, you're probably one of the few. I don't know. Yeah, drop a comment in as well if you got to the end of the video without fast forwarding it. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. And we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.